The words hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. I stood there in my white dress, my heart pounding, staring into the eyes of the man I thought I knew. How did it come to this? How did a day meant for love and celebration turn into a moment that would haunt me forever? Hey there. Before we dive into this whirlwind of a story, drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. Your city, your country, or maybe just your cozy couch. It means the world to hear from you, and trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this one. My name is Elizabeth, and this is the story of my wedding day. A day that started with butterflies in my stomach and ended with a truth I never saw coming. I'm from a small town in Ohio where everyone knows your business, and family ties are as tight as they are tangled. My fiancé, James, was my high school sweetheart. We'd been together for 6 years, weathering college, long-distance calls, and the chaos of planning a wedding in our hometown. James was steady, kind, with a smile that could melt anyone. Or so I thought. The wedding was set for a warm June afternoon at the local community center, decked out with fairy lights and wildflowers. My mom, Susan, had spent months sewing tablecloths, while my dad, Tom, grilled anyone who'd listen about the catering budget. My older sister, Rachel, was my maid of honor. She's always been the loud one, bold, charming, with a laugh that fills a room. Growing up, she was my hero, but there was always this undercurrent, like she needed to be the center of everything. I brushed it off. Sisters, right? The guest list was a mix of our families and friends, about 100 people, from Aunt Linda with her endless stories to James's best man, Mike, who kept sneaking whiskey from a flask. Everything felt normal. The kind of normal you see in wedding photos, with clinking glasses and kids running around in tiny suits. But beneath the surface, there were cracks I didn't notice until it was too late. I remember standing in the bridal suite that morning, adjusting my veil in the mirror. Rachel was behind me, zipping up my dress, her fingers brushing my shoulders. "You look perfect, Liz," she said. But her voice had this edge like she was swallowing something bitter. I smiled, chalking it up to nerves. James and I had planned this day for a year, every detail, from the lavender centerpieces to the playlist of our favorite songs. What could go wrong? But there were signs, small ones, like the way Rachel lingered too long when she hugged James at the rehearsal dinner, her hand resting on his arm, or how my mom kept glancing at Rachel during the toasts, her lips tight. Even Mike, James's best friend, seemed off, avoiding eye contact when I asked if everything was okay. I told myself it was just the stress of the day. Weddings bring out the weird in people, don't they? What was at stake wasn't just a party. It was my future with James, the life we'd dreamed of. Lazy Sundays, a house with a porch, maybe a dog or two. It was about proving to our families, to ourselves, that love could conquer the messiness of life. But there was something else simmering, something I couldn't name yet. Pride, secrets, the kind of stuff that festers in small towns where everyone thinks they know you. As the ceremony approached, I felt the weight of it all. My dad walked me down the aisle, his calloused hand squeezing mine. I looked at James, standing at the altar in his navy suit, his eyes locked on me. For a moment, everything was perfect. The vows, the rings, the kiss. It all went off without a hitch. I thought we'd made it. I thought the hard part was over. But then came the reception. The room buzzed with laughter, the clink of champagne glasses, the hum of our favorite love song. I was floating, my hand in James's, when I caught Rachel staring at us from across the room. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. She was holding a glass of wine, her knuckles white around the stem. I brushed it off again. Maybe she was just tired. Maybe she was jealous of the spotlight. If only I'd paid attention to those glances, those whispers. If only I'd noticed the way James's jaw tightened when Rachel walked by. But I was too busy being a bride, too busy believing in happily ever after. The truth was, something was brewing, something that would crack open in front of everyone we loved, something that would make me question everything I thought I knew about my sister, my husband, and even myself. The reception hall was alive, a swirl of music and chatter, with fairy lights casting a warm glow over the tables. I was on cloud 9, my hand tucked into James's as we swayed to our first dance. His arms felt like home, and for a moment, I forgot about Rachel's strange looks, or the odd tension I'd sensed earlier. But that bubble of bliss didn't last long. Trouble was creeping in, quiet at first, like a shadow you only notice when it's too late. It started with small things. Aunt Linda, tipsy on her third glass of wine, leaned over to my mom and said, just loud enough for me to catch, "Rachel's been awfully quiet tonight, hasn't she? Not like her to let Elizabeth steal the show." Mom's face tightened, and she shot a glance at Rachel, who was across the room chatting with Mike. I brushed it off. Family gossip, nothing new. But then I noticed Mike's expression. His jaw was clenched, his eyes darting between Rachel and James. Something was off, but I couldn't pin it down. As the night went on, the air grew heavier. I was mingling with guests, thanking them for coming, when I overheard a cousin whisper to another, "Did you see how Rachel looked at James during the toasts? Like she was about to cry or scream." My stomach twisted. I told myself it was just drama, the kind that flares up at weddings when emotions run high. But the whispers kept coming, like little sparks igniting a fire I didn't yet see. Rachel was everywhere, laughing too loudly, refilling her wine glass, brushing past James as she moved through the crowd. Each time she passed, I caught a flicker in his eyes, a quick glance he tried to hide. I wanted to ask him about it, but every time I turned to him, someone else pulled me away. My dad for a photo, a friend for a hug. The night was moving too fast, and I was starting to feel like a passenger in my own story. Then came the toasts. Mike went first, his speech full of jokes about James's college days and how I'd tamed him. Everyone laughed, but I noticed Rachel rolling her eyes, her arms crossed tightly. When it was her turn, she stood up, glass in hand, and the room quieted. Her smile was sharp, like she was holding something back. "To Elizabeth," she said, her voice smooth but laced with something I couldn't name. The perfect bride, the perfect sister, always getting what she wants. The room chuckled, thinking it was a playful jab, but her words landed like a stone in my chest. I forced a smile, squeezing James's hand under the table. He didn't squeeze back. Rachel went on, her tone growing sharper. "And to James, who's, well, let's just say he's lucky to have my sister." The crowd clapped, but I saw my mom shift in her seat, her eyes narrowing. Something wasn't right. After the toast, I pulled Rachel aside near the dessert table. "Hey, everything okay?" I asked, keeping my voice light. Her eyes flicked to mine, then away. "Of course, Liz, it's your day. I'm just... here." She smiled, but it felt like a mask. Before I could press her, she walked off, leaving me with a knot in my stomach. The tension kept building, layer by layer. During a slow song, I saw Rachel and James talking near the bar. It was brief, but her hand lingered on his sleeve and his face was unreadable. My best friend Sarah caught me staring and whispered, "Ignore her, Liz. She's just being Rachel. Center of attention as always." But Sarah's words didn't soothe me. I started noticing other things. The way my mom kept pulling Rachel aside, their heads bent together in hushed conversation. The way Mike avoided James, sticking to the other side of the room. By the time the cake cutting came around, I was on edge. James and I stood together, smiling for the cameras, but his hand felt stiff in mine. The crowd cheered as we sliced the cake, but I caught Rachel watching us, her lips pressed into a thin line. Then, out of nowhere, she stepped forward, her voice cutting through the noise. "Mind if I say something?" she asked, grabbing a microphone from the DJ. The room went quiet, all eyes on her. My heart raced. James's hand tightened on mine, but not in a comforting way. Rachel's eyes locked on us, and she smiled. A smile that sent a chill down my spine. "I just want to share a little memory," she said, her voice dripping with something dangerous. "About James and me." The air in the room shifted, like everyone was holding their breath. My mom's face went pale. Mike looked like he wanted to bolt, and James, he wouldn't meet my eyes. I stood there, frozen, my white dress suddenly feeling too tight, as Rachel's words hung like a guillotine ready to fall. What did she mean, James and me? My mind raced, piecing together the glances, the whispers, the tension. Was this just Rachel being dramatic? Or was there something I'd missed? Something that had been there all along, hiding in plain sight. The room felt like it was closing in. the fairy lights blurring into a haze. Rachel stood there, microphone in hand, her eyes glinting with something I couldn't quite read. Anger, pain, maybe both. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. James's hand was still in mine, but it was clammy now, slipping away as if he was already somewhere else. The crowd was silent, every guest leaning forward, waiting for Rachel to drop whatever bomb she was holding. "James and me," she repeated, her voice steady but sharp, like a knife slicing through the festive air. "We go way back, don't we?" She turned to him, her smile tight, almost daring him to respond. I looked at James, waiting for him to laugh it off, to say something to break the tension. But he didn't. His face was pale, his jaw locked, and his eyes were fixed on the floor. I felt a cold sweat prickling my skin. "Rachel," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "what are you doing?" But she ignored me, stepping closer to the center of the room, the microphone amplifying every word. "See, Liz, you've always been the golden child. The one who got the perfect grades, the perfect life, the perfect guy." Her voice cracked on that last word, and the room seemed to hold its breath. My mom stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. "Rachel, that's enough," she said, her tone sharp but shaky. But Rachel waved her off, her eyes locked on me now. "No, Mom, she deserves to know. Don't you think?" "Know what?" My mind was spinning, grasping at fragments. Rachel's lingering touches, James's uneasy glances, the whispers I'd ignored all night. I turned to James, my voice trembling. "What's she talking about?" He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. His silence was louder than any words could have been. Rachel took a step closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that the microphone carried to every corner of the room. "He still loves me, Liz." The words hit like a punch to the gut. The hall gasped, a collective intake of breath that echoed in my ears. My vision blurred, and for a moment I thought I might collapse right there in my wedding dress. Rachel kept going, her voice steady now, like she'd been waiting for this moment. "We were together, Liz, before you. For months. And he never really let me go." The room erupted into murmurs, guests exchanging shocked glances. Aunt Linda's wineglass froze halfway to her lips. My dad's face was red, his fists clenched on the table. Mike, James's best man, looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. And me? I was stuck, rooted to the spot, my heart splintering as I looked at the man I'd just vowed to spend my life with. "James," I said, my voice breaking, "is this true?" He finally looked at me, his eyes wide like a deer caught in headlights. "Liz, he started, but Rachel cut him off, stepping even closer, her voice rising. "Tell her, James. Tell her how you called me last month, saying you weren't sure about this wedding. Tell her how you said you missed me." The gasps turned into a low roar of whispers. I felt like I was drowning, the room spinning around me. My sister and my husband? It didn't make sense. James and I had been together for years. He'd proposed under the oak tree in my parents' backyard, promised me forever. But now, with Rachel's words hanging in the air, every moment we'd shared felt like a lie. I waited for James to deny it, to call Rachel out, to say anything to make this nightmare stop. But he just stood there, his hands shaking, his eyes darting between me and Rachel. And then he spoke, his voice low but clear, carrying a weight that made the entire hall freeze. "Rachel, stop," he said, his tone firm but laced with something raw, something broken. "I don't love you. I haven't for a long time. I chose Elizabeth." The room gasped again, but this time it was different, sharper, like a release of pressure. Rachel's face crumpled, her confident mask shattering. She took a step back, the microphone slipping in her hand. "You're lying," she whispered, but her voice lacked conviction now. James turned to me, his eyes pleading. "Liz, I swear, it's over. It was over before we even got engaged. She's twisting things." He reached for my hand, but I pulled back, my mind racing. The truth was out, but it didn't feel like relief. It felt like betrayal, layered and messy. Rachel and James had a past, one he'd never told me about. And now, on our wedding day, it was spilling out in front of everyone we loved. Rachel's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't back down. "You'll regret this, James," she said, her voice shaking. "You'll regret choosing her." She dropped the microphone, the thud echoing through the silent hall, and stormed toward the exit, her heels clicking against the floor. I stood there, my dress suddenly too heavy, my heart in pieces. The guests were staring, some whispering, some frozen in shock. My mom rushed to my side, her arm around me, but I barely felt it. All I could see was James, his face a mix of guilt and desperation, and the empty space where my sister had been. What had just happened? And how was I supposed to move forward from this? The silence in the hall was deafening, the kind that makes your ears ring. Rachel's footsteps faded as she stormed out, leaving the microphone on the floor, its feedback humming faintly. Every eye was on me. Elizabeth, the bride, standing frozen in my white dress, my world unraveling in front of 100 guests. James reached for me again, his voice soft, pleading. "Liz, please, let me explain." But I couldn't look at him. Not yet. My heart was a tangle of hurt, anger, and confusion, and the weight of everyone's stares made it hard to breathe. My mom tightened her grip on my arm, her voice low but fierce. "Elizabeth, you don't have to do this now. Come with me." She tried to guide me toward the back of the room, but I shook my head. Running away felt like letting Rachel win, like letting this moment define my wedding day. I turned to the crowd, my voice shaky but steady enough. "Everyone, please, just give us a moment." The guests shifted awkwardly, some looking away, others whispering. Aunt Linda dabbed her eyes with a napkin, and my dad stood up, his face still red with anger, glaring at James. Mike, the best man, finally moved, picking up the microphone and handing it to the DJ, who quickly started playing soft music to fill the void. It didn't help. The tension was still there, thick and suffocating. I pulled James to a corner near the bar, away from the prying eyes. My hands were trembling, but I forced myself to speak. "Tell me the truth, James. All of it. Now." He ran a hand through his hair, his eyes glassy. "Liz, I swear it's not what she made it sound like. Rachel and I, we dated for a few months in college before you and I got serious. It was nothing, just a fling. I ended it when I realized I loved you. I haven't been with her since." "Then why didn't you tell me?" My voice cracked, tears burning my eyes. "And what was that about you calling her last month?" James winced like I'd hit a nerve. "I didn't call her to say I missed her. I called to tell her to stop contacting me. She kept texting, saying she wanted to talk, saying she was struggling. I didn't want to upset you before the wedding, so I didn't say anything. I thought I could handle it." His words made sense, but they didn't erase the sting. My sister, my maid of honor, had been holding on to this secret, waiting for the perfect moment to tear me apart. And James, the man I loved, had kept me in the dark. I felt betrayed by both of them, caught in a web I didn't even know existed. Before I could respond, my mom approached, her face a mix of worry and anger. "Elizabeth, Rachel's outside. She's a mess. I don't know what's gotten into her, but you don't have to deal with this today." I looked at James, then at the door where Rachel had disappeared. Part of me wanted to chase her, to demand answers, to scream. But another part of me, the part that was still a bride, still in love, wanted to salvage what was left of this day. I took a deep breath, wiping my eyes. "Let's finish the reception," I said, my voice firmer than I felt. "This is our day, not hers." The rest of the night was a blur. James and I danced, smiled for photos, cut the cake again for the cameras. The guests rallied, their laughter and cheers a little too loud, like they were trying to erase what had happened. But the whispers never stopped. I saw my dad pull Rachel aside later, his voice low and stern. I saw Mike and James talking heatedly by the exit, and I saw my mom, her eyes red, watching me like she was afraid I'd break. Rachel didn't come back inside. I heard later she'd driven home, leaving her car keys with my mom, and a half-hearted apology scribbled on a napkin. James and I left for our honeymoon the next day, a trip to the Smoky Mountains we'd planned for months. We talked, fought, cried, and slowly started to rebuild. He swore he'd cut Rachel off for good, and I believed him, but trust takes time to mend. In the weeks that followed, Rachel and I didn't speak. My mom tried to mediate, saying Rachel was going through something, but I wasn't ready to forgive. Not yet. The wedding had gone on, stronger in some ways, but the scars were there. Our small town buzzed with gossip for months, and every time I saw Rachel's name on my phone, I felt that same knot in my stomach. Looking back, I think about love, how it's messy, complicated, and sometimes built on secrets we don't see until they explode. My wedding day wasn't the fairy tale I'd dreamed of, but it taught me something. The truth, no matter how painful, has a way of setting you free, even if it hurts like hell first. I'm still figuring out how to forgive Rachel, how to trust James completely again. But I know one thing. I'm stronger than I thought I was. What would you have done in my shoes? Drop a comment below and let me know. Would you confront your sister, forgive your spouse, or walk away from it all? Your thoughts mean so much, and if this story hit home, hit that subscribe button to catch more real-life stories like mine. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.